Welcome, everyone. It's great to have you all here with us today. My name is Jenna, and I'm excited to be the host for today's event. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. Here at Hack Reactor, we have a portfolio of transformational coding boot camps that will prepare you to become a full stack software engineer. We do like to foster a camera on culture here at Hack Reactor, so if you feel comfortable and you are able to do so, we welcome you to join us here on camera today. I'm very excited to now go ahead and pass the mic over to our three amazing panelists and members of the Hack Reactor team that work closely with our Intermediate Coding Bootcamp to introduce themselves. So we'll go ahead and start with Julian.
Thank you so much, Jenna. Happy Aloha Friday, everybody. My name is Julian. I am dialing in from Southern California, specifically Thousand Oaks in Ventura County. I've been an instructor with the SCI 12-week program, intermediate program, since February 2018. So it's been a minute, and I've gotten to see the different iterations that have occurred throughout the curriculum, staff, programming, etc. And I love the program enough to have been here for almost 7 years now. I'm really excited to answer all and any questions folks have regarding the SCI 12 program. Over to you, Jerid.
Hey team, so I am Jerid Woods. I am the program lead for the SCI 12 program, and I also serve as a program lead over at SJP at our 19-week program. I love both programs. I love Hack Reactor and the work that we do. Yeah, I've been doing it about 2.5 years now. I have over 10 years of educational experience. And I'm continuing to try and add to that so that I can better serve the customer. So super excited to be here and serve on this panel. And I will pass it over to Lena.
Hello, my name is Lena Johnson, and I am part of the career services team. I live in Bozeman, Montana, where it's not snow on the ground yet, which is a miracle. It usually is at this point. And let's see here. I've been with the company for 8.5 years. I actually just recently completed one of our bootcamp programs, so I can relate to what you all will experience through this in new and fun ways. I have a background in higher education and a degree in information systems, so I have kind of a combination of these things, but I served as a career coach for many years and then have been in more of a leadership position recently. And I will just tell you, having been here for 8.5 years, if Julian is your instructor, you have got truly the cream of the crop. And I have seen all the instructors throughout all the years. Julian is best of the best. So this is an awesome program for that in particular, just from my outside perspective. So that's all for me.
Amazing. Thank you all so much. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing just so that I can spotlight our panelists here so that everyone, can see your faces. Okay, awesome. Great. Well, thank you all so much. So happy to have you all here. Lena always has the best. You always have the best backgrounds in your headshots, like the one that was just on the screen. So makes sense. You live somewhere so beautiful to use it. Alrighty, so we will now go ahead and move into some questions. And I'm just going to go ahead and start by teeing up a few common questions that we see frequently from people that are interested or maybe even enrolled in a future cohort of what they're interested in knowing before getting started in our intermediate bootcamp. And again, that Q&A button is open, so feel free to put questions in there at any time, and we'll answer as many as we can during the duration of the event. I'll give the contact info at the end for follow-up just in case we don't answer every single question. Alrighty, so first up, just what can someone expect from instructors and other staff in terms of support throughout the program? And maybe Julian, if you could talk a little bit to like the support, the involvement that you give, maybe your teaching style, and then we can go ahead and have Jerid and Lena follow up on support that you provide to students during the program. That would be great.
Sounds good. Thank you for that question, Jenna. And again, happy to be here with everyone. Thank you for making time on this Friday afternoon. In terms of support, it's a mix. It's a mix of support from my role as instructor. The number one goal is to make sure you're full stack ready. by the time you graduate from this program. And so that encompasses several things. First being live instruction, right? So live instruction is one of the things I do mainly as a way to engage with you all and help provide that instructional support. We go over concepts. It's a really fast program. And so during the lectures, the live lectures, we make sure you have those opportunities to ask questions, clarify any type of concepts, whether it be a certain library, a framework, a programming pattern within the JavaScript ecosystem. And in addition to lectures, we have office hours, we have group sessions, we have a lot of sprint work. And usually you heard Jenna speak earlier about pair programming, where you're coding with another fellow colleague, a cohort mate. And that is in a support in of itself, because it forces you, it gives you the opportunity to practice your technical communication while you're applying the concepts you've learned during the lecture with myself. We also have other instructional formats. We have pre-recorded lectures that allow you to essentially learn at your own pace while still asking questions with me and the rest of our staff along the way. And so it's not one of those things where you're isolated in a bubble, right? This boot camp environment is designed to really accelerate your learning process. You're going to be forced to learn how to learn, develop your autonomy, knowing how to ask the right questions, right? It's not about finding something perfect the first time. It's getting wrong multiple times so that eventually leads you down the right path. And so we're here to kind of provide that environment, that container for you.
My next. Sure, I'll go ahead and do it. And so while Julian's kind of handling that from the technical aspect, I serve as the program lead and what we call cohort lead, where I provide like socio-emotional support, right? So we have one-on-ones available where you can come in and kind of talk to me about how you're feeling. And then I also kind of serve as like the liaison between you and the programs that we have available to further support you, like our student assistant program that has, counselors, everything from like counselors to like looking at people in your area that can help you with your living expenses and things of that nature, right? So I serve as like your liaison between that and those resources that we have for you, but also as like kind of like your liaison between these two as well, setting up different meetings with the instructors and students, but then also doing that same work with you and the career services team. So I'm kind of like your one-stop shop for everything that isn't technical while you're going through the program. And I'm always just what we call a Slack ping away. So yeah, whenever you need me, I help you out in that regard. But when I'm in my program lead hat, I'm working on the logistics of the actual program behind the scenes, whether that's getting you in your respective like places in terms of GitHub and Slack and Assist and Learn. I'm doing those type of logistical things in the background as the program lead. And also helping with like any disciplinary actions and or code of conduct things on the back end. So for the SCI 12 program, I'm kind of like your one-stop shop for both like anything that's non-technical, but also anything that's administrative, since I'm serving in both of those roles. And I'll pass it over to Lynn.
Awesome. Well, I have a visual. I'm going to share my screen really quick just because it might be a little bit easier to follow along. Can you see that? So by design, I think you heard Jenna talk about the first half of the program and second half, the junior and senior phases. We try not to get super involved with you early on, and that's for a couple of reasons. Number one, there's a lot that you're learning. It's a lot on your plate, and having just gone through it myself, if I had to do a lot of career services on top of trying to learn these new concepts and get my stuff done, I would have found that very challenging. So we're trying to leave you alone at the beginning so you can really cement some of those initial technical skills. And because ultimately, if your goal is to transition into a career, we are going to be most helpful to you after you have a sense of what it is that you know technically and how you could articulate that value to anybody in your circle, but employers and any networking opportunities. So we come in fact, we're in the classroom today, right after the first capstone project was done. Then we have a full day with you before you kick off your next major project. And so that gives context around us being able to create resumes with you and make sure that they're technical resumes and you're really demonstrating who you are as a software engineer and having just a new profile of who you are, right? So Today, we're going through things like personal branding, personal narrative, LinkedIn, resume, outreach. So these like major components of what will be your job search, but can also help you while you're a student. So that if you want to start networking, if you want to start doing informational interviews with people while you're in the program, you have time to do that and you have the resources you need to do that well. So after today, starting next week, my team will be giving resume reviews and getting those into like a good finalized state. Julian actually comes in and helps us about partway through the senior phase, where we dig even more into the technical bullet points when you finish your second project, so that you're feeling really good about what it is that you are building and how you can talk about that. And then you'll meet with our team as well before you graduate. Just like a one-on-one where we can get to know you and your specific goals and where you live and where you want to work and all of those things, so we can help create a tailored plan for you. And then when you graduate, that's where we really kick in. So we have the final week 12 is ours. That's where we'll add in these additional layers of just like foundational knowledge that we will build on when you graduate, but things like how to write a cover letter, how to do, how to interview, like what are the components of a good interview response, salary deflection and negotiation are a big one that are fun to teach and help people understand, how to prepare for a technical interview. So a lot of that happens in the very end, right as we get you ready to launch. And then in your job search support, you have 180 days with our team. You will have the support of the whole team, but you'll have one person in particular that you'll be working with on a weekly basis for the most part. It's weekly for the first 6 weeks. We try to mandate as much of that as we possibly can, because it's so important to make sure that you're off to a good start. And then from that point on, I like to keep those as frequently as possible, but you do have some say in that, if there's some reasons why you wouldn't be as available. But it helps us keep you accountable, keep yourself accountable, and then we can strategize every single week, work on your interview responses, make sure that your study plan and time management are good. So we're really like your ally and advocate through that whole process and trying to keep you motivated and on track and like getting where you need to be. So that's career services support, not just in the program, but afterwards. But I figured the visual could help with that.
Yeah, I think that visual definitely helps. Thank you, Lena, for showing that. Yeah, definitely is good to see exactly when you kick in. And it's definitely, again, everyone's learning a lot in this program. So things come at a good time. So thank you all so much for sharing your perspective on the kind of well-rounded support that students receive when they're in the program. So a big question that we get, and I think something that's important to address for anyone that's looking at taking any kind of program, what is the best way for someone to prepare to do an intensive program like this? Maybe skill set wise, but then also maybe talking about like lifestyle and mentality going in wise, if you could. Thank you.
Yeah, I can speak to the mentality part first, and then how that transitions over to the technical part. And I'm sure many folks on the call have heard this many, many times, right? The growth mindset aspect of being able to continuously learn and improve is crucial. And it's the same within this immersive program, this SCI 12-week intermediate program. A lot of times folks come into this program feeling like, oh, am I underprepared? Oh, my peers have more experience than me, et cetera. And that's why I want to double down on what Jenna said earlier about the pre-course program that everyone must complete before entering day one of the 12-week program. And the reason why the pre-course program is there is to set you up for success, really. It's to make sure not only are you on the same quote unquote playing field as everyone else, but it's to make sure that those foundations, those core fundamentals of the JavaScript language is there for you. And so if you come in with a growth mindset of like, cool, I may not understand how scope works just yet. I may not understand how closure is being applied here, but I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to ask the right questions. I'm willing to spend that extra time, effort to really understand what's happening under the hood, not just to pass test cases, right? And then move on to the next thing, but to really understand at a cellular level of how something works and have that curiosity. That's one of the best ways to prepare for this program. And again, it's something where when you have that foundation solid, you'll be able to ramp up real fast once you enter the program, because you have to get to the pre-course in order to start day one with us. And you're not going to come in like fully knowing everything. but it's going to be something where you're going to slowly build that ability to learn how to learn. And so when we have these 2-day sprints where you're learning, this front-end library one day, and then 2 days later, you're learning a back-end framework, a new database system, we're going to teach you how to identify relevant documentation, how to look up stuff, so that you have a template for yourself of how to apply these techniques when you're out in the real world, right? When you're out on job search, when you're out on your first day of job, how to best prepare for that first day one. You're going to have those abilities because you'll be like, oh yeah, I remember doing this when I was in immersive. I got introduced to this new library. This is what I did. This is a step-by-step I took in order to understand what were the relevant parts of documentation so I can immediately get to work and be very productive and add value to my organization. So those are one of the best ways to prepare for the program, that growth mindset, and then really taking your time to understand pre-course so that you set yourself up for success in the 12-week software engineering immersive program that Lena alluded to, SEI.
Yeah, I guess I'll kind of follow the same kind of guideline, and also go ahead and get it out of the way before Lena pulls up another visual. I think that some of the things that you could do to prepare for this program are those ones that you hear that, which I have seen in my position that folks have neglected to kind of take care of. So making sure that you have your living arrangement set up, making sure that you have all of your bills situated, and making sure that you've kind of tidied up your life as best as you can, given, the fact that we know that life happens before you enter the program, so that you can also really fully commit to the growth mindset that Julian was kind of talking about. All of us on this panel have extensive experience dealing with a lot of the different things that you're going to be dealing with as you go through the program. And so trust that we have that we are utilizing that experience to make sure that you have the best experience possible. So, when we make these suggestions about things that you should do and or where you are in the overall pathway of completing this program, know that it comes from a place of, we've seen this before. These are normal feelings, and you probably are much better off than you actually think you are, especially in a 12-week program, because like Julian said, you've already shown proficiency through the pre-course program that we offer here, right? So once you've made it through that, now it's just time to go through these next steps and make sure that you give your all in each of those opportunities that you get as you go through these 12 weeks. So I would say those things that you kind of already are aware, right, that you need to take care of, but making sure that you take care of them with the fidelity that they need, so that they don't pop up later on in the program and interfere with your ability to, receive the education that you are here for.
Okay, major +1 to that, Jerid. I'm going to take 2 different tacks on this one. I'm going to kind of follow up on what you said, which is that planning, the life planning is really important. This is a very intense program, and for the best reasons. Like, it's why I believe so much in this program after seeing it run for 8.5 years. I mean, it's something that when you get through it, you'll be really proud, and just, you'll know, like, wow, I really did just accomplish a lot, and that was super hard, but really worth it. And that's why you're able to do what you'll be able to do at the end, and like why you'll be able to get a job at the end. And so I would say, coming into it, you have to be in an environment where you feel supported to do that. So like, same thing when I did my program, I have 2 kids, I have a life, we all have these things going on. And I had to plan that with my support system of, how can I be as focused as I possibly can during this time? Because it's going to be hard, and I'm going to have all these other things, and I need to make sure that these other pieces of my life are covered in the way that is going to set me up for success during that time period. That was crucial, and it honestly made it so that I could thrive without trying to like ad hoc try and figure that out and then feel like I'm falling behind and not doing anything as well as I wanted to. So that was really important. And I think when you're in the program, like what Jerid said and what he'll help you stay on track with is like truly taking care of yourself. Like, think of this is like, I would say this is a legitimate, not military, obviously, but like, it's boot camp in a real way, where not all of our programs are like that. Like, this is a much more intense program for great reason. And so you have to be able to take care of yourself and like manage your time and use the time that you have for personal hour and lunch to like do these things that are going to keep you going and keep you energized. That's really critical. And then I would say the determination and grit that Julian's talking about in terms of that growth mindset are key. Like there is an element of just you have to trust the process. You have to know going into it that unless you had like a decent amount of pre-exposure to this, you're going to feel over your head many times, and you will be right there with like 95% of the students that have ever come through this program. Like that is just the way this was designed to feel. You are going to feel like I have no idea what I'm doing much of the time, but it builds. It's kind of like, I don't know this yet, but I will. And like things will fall into place. They will start to click. They'll start to map onto each other. But at first you'll have that self-doubt that you just have to push through. And then that carries on into obviously what I care about, which is the job search. So all of these things, when you can hone them in this, in the classroom environment, it will like really lead you to success in the job search, where you're going to have to maintain that same level of discipline and push through any self-doubt and push through rejection and just kind of move forward, knowing and trusting that you have what you need to get the job and get through the process. So that's what I would say.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. It's awesome, even like Lena hearing the experience of someone that just went through this and know that it's very intense. So congrats to you on finishing your program recently. And like she said, yeah, when you have the life stuff set up, it allows you to succeed through a very strenuous program. But hey, just think about when you land a job and they want you to learn stuff really quickly, you'll be set. You'll be like, oh man, I just did this. I'm you'll have been through something even more intensive and feel so much more confident in your ability to really learn and nail things quickly. Alrighty, we're starting to get some questions in. I just have one more that I wanted to pose that I think is an interesting question to just kind of lay out in an event like this. So I think this will mainly be for Julian and Jerid. Could you talk about what a typical day in the program looks like? I think that's something that can be sometimes maybe hard for someone to visualize. It's just looking at doing one of these. So could you just kind of talk about, yeah, what a kind of, I know not every day is the same, but like a typical structure would be like?
Yeah, that's a great question. And depending on whether we're the junior phase, senior phase is going to vary, but I'll speak to the junior phase first, quickly. You can expect a typical day where you're deep in code. There's no way to put it, right? You're deep in code. In the junior phase, it's going to be pair programming, and so you and another fellow engineer cohort mate are going to be deep in your Visual Studio Code editor. You've got that pulled up. You've got the Glearn, which is our learning management system that's going to have the sprint material. Sprint meaning there's, let's say you're learning a new library, and then there's going to be a set of tasks, features that you're going to be coding live in order to make that feature come to life. And so you're going to be building that, you're going to be testing that, and you're also going to have multiple tabs open with different documentation looked it up, opened up. So that's a typical day. Your best way to learn is by fingers to the keyboard and driving, navigating with your pair. Along with that, you might also expect a couple lectures throughout the week, throughout the day, to guide you along the way. I like to think of us, instructors, program leads, career services, as your GPS, right? 3 points to identify where you're located, and that's going to help you. We can't do the driving for you. We can't, add the gas, the fuel, the different features of your car for you, but we're going to guide you along the way. At the end of the day, you're going to be the one taking ownership and putting in the work, and so that's what a typical day looks like. It's starts early in the morning, ends pretty fairly not late, but it's around the 8 p.m. Pacific time mark on your weekdays. And so you're going to be living, breathing. Some students also dream of coding as well while they're in immersive, and that's typically very normal. It's healthy to a certain extent, right? It just really makes sure you're marinating over the concept you've been learning, because again, you're moving at a really fast pace. And so it's gonna really zoom by faster than you expect. So that's a typical day, lectures, but mainly it's really just pair programming and having access to your support staff that you see here along the way.
It's exactly like Julian said. No, but it is though, right? Julian gave you a really good overview of it. But where I kind of come in though is a lot of times we often also call the cohort lead like you're a cheerleader, right? So like at the beginning of the day during coffee chat, I might set the tone, right, with just some fun anecdotes, I guess I will say, to kind of get you in the zone to go kind of undertake some of the things that Julian is saying. But then also, I think like I kind of serve in terms of your typical everyday experience, kind of like an advisor, right? So like you will just ping me and say, hey, I've been feeling overwhelmed. What does the program offer, right? For me when I feel that way. And, of course, the first thing is me, right? And my sunny disposition. But we'll have a conversation and we'll try to get to the root of why you're feeling that way and what we can do as a staff to help you. But then I will also offer you all of the different other options that we do have available in that conversation. While you're also simultaneously kind of still going through your day. So when I kind of interject myself throughout the day, it's not necessarily going to take you out of your flow. It's more of like, this is what I need, Jerid. Can you go get it type of thing? And then I try to come back with the best information that I have possible after consulting different areas to try and bring that to you. So I'm not necessarily an integral part of your day throughout the entire day, so much as I'm invested in making sure that your day functions properly throughout that day. That's what I would say.
Awesome. Yeah, that was a great overview. Thank you both so much. And thanks, Jared, for, sharing even a little bit more of like the support that you provide to students on a day-to-day. Well, we have had a few questions come in, so we can go ahead and start tackling the audience questions. And again, as you think of questions, please submit them. If it is a little bit off the topic of what we're going to cover today, I'll message you directly and answer the best I can. And also, again, direct you to our info sessions with our enrollment team are like a really great way to get any application questions answered. And this one, we're going to be more so focusing on the experience of students and alumni from those that work closely with them. All right, first up, Christopher asked, what kind of projects can we expect to work on towards the end of the course? So could you just explain the project a little bit more?
Yeah, so right now it's a perfect segue because our students they're in their senior phase right now. They're with Lena's team tackling career day because yesterday afternoon they just delivered a phenomenal front-end capstone is what we call it, presentation, their final product demos. And so they're in the first of 3 to 4 final projects that they are going to be tackling in the rest of the senior phase. And so during these capstone phases, they're designed to gear you up for what to expect in the real engineering world. And real engineering world usually encompasses of things where specs, specifications, guidelines, prompts are very unclear, poorly defined. And so we try to emulate that during the senior phase, and we have those students take on those challenges. So front-end capstone is really deep into front-end work. They're building out different e-commerce applications with different components, widgets, etc., utilizing the libraries that they've learned during the junior phase. So junior phase is getting that foundation ready to then run that marathon, right? So you're doing the training, and now senior phase is just a marathon of different final projects. So the FEC is the front end capstone, is deep into front end work. And then I saw Troy ask about the back end system. So that they also touch upon as part of their one of their final projects as well. It's called the system design capstone, where you lean heavily into thinking about, okay, cool. I and other team members just built a really cool application. So what, right? That's what SDC answers. So what? Well, what happens when you get a lot of demand on that particular application? How do you make sure your system can scale and, more importantly, withstand certain failures that may occur? And so we dive deep into the backend systems of making sure our data is optimized, secure, highly available, and we take that to the cloud utilizing something called AWS, Amazon Web Services, which 90% of our students on Monday just learned it. And then they deployed it, meaning they put their application onto a remote server, virtual instances, and they showed it off yesterday during demo. So as an instructor, as the instructor, get really geeked out when I see someone come from no cloud background and just like we talked about, in just very short few days, they completely just learn how to do it, and then they can demo that in a live setting to their peers. And so those are some of the projects you'll be expecting to work and complete with your peers towards the end of the program.
Fantastic. Thank you, Julian. That definitely answered that one. And then I saw that Julian, you saw this one question. The next one I'm going to tee up to you in that Q&A. is from Troy on how deep will we get with backend database architecture? If you want to dive
Yeah,
in.
that's a great question, Troy. And I love backend stuff as well. More than the front end, I'll say that just because I'm not as creative as many of the students here in immersive. But in terms of backend, the junior phase, you'll be exposed to backend databases. So the main flavors that you'll be learning and picking up, ramping up on, Troy and team, is a SQL database system, so MySQL, and also a non-SQL database called MongoDB. So those are the two heavy ones that you'll be exposed to and actually apply towards your sprint work to make sure your front-end application has a persistent storage system to house all of the data. And you do some basic schema design, different type of queries, etc. And then during the senior phase, we kind of take that up a notch. We're like, okay, cool. Instead of a few records in your system, what happens when you've got millions and millions of records, right? You've got a CSV file. Now you have to populate that data. How do you make sure your query times are optimized? How do you make sure that when you deploy those systems, those continue to operate in a high performant behavior? And so you'll go pretty deep in the senior phase. In fact, you spend about 2 solid weeks during system design of making sure your databases, both locally and on deployed, are tip-top shape so that you can handle different type of scaling and high demand traffic towards your systems. So it's designed to be very broad in the beginning, and then you go very deep towards it in the senior phase, so that when you come up with different type of back-end engineer interviews, you'll be ready to address things like schema design, how do you handle different type of scaling issues, how do you handle fault tolerance, all those type of natures that makes you a successful backend engineer.
Awesome. Thank you so much for answering those audience questions. And again, feel free to submit any others that you all have. I wanted to throw in another question in the mix. So I think oftentimes when people are looking at maybe expanding their knowledge on coding, they're like, is it worth it to do a program like this, or should I try to learn it on my own? And with the, being a remote setting, could you all talk about how you foster relationship building in the virtual environment, both in the program, like peer to peer, how people actually feel connected to someone when they're, just sitting at their computer, and then also maybe talking about the aspect of how we can still build relationships that lead into jobs after the program?
Go first,
That's
Jerid. I can follow up after you.
Well, yeah. So one of the things that I do, as a cohort lead, when I'm wearing that cohort lead hat, is that I try to attend every coffee chat in the morning. It's kind of an optional thing, but I know how important it is for community to be built, in this short span of time. So I try to foster that community myself by showing up for my students as often and daily as I can to that particular thing, to the point where the students expect it and also are now fostering relationships with each other during those morning conversations, but also during our one-on-ones. It's an intimate, confidential space, unless it's something that, we need to, alert different parties to make sure that you're safe and that we're, operating within our policies and procedures. But for the most part, it's a confidential space where I also get to know you personally, and try and help you through the relationships that you have in the cohort and just through this tumultuous time, right? But then students also generally emerge, right, out of the group as particular leaders and organizers who organize different things, whether it's playing video games in whatever time they might locate that they feel like is spare time, but and or chatting, and or specific cohort jokes that I think are very important, but also ultimately fostering networks that transition into the Hack Reactor alumni space, but then also just transition into, sometimes one person goes into a company and then three other follow them, that come directly from those relationships that they have built inside of these cohorts. So that's what I would kind of say in terms of from my vantage point, when it comes to those types of relationships and how I seek to kind of foster it. Then there's also like social events and other things like that too that we have implemented throughout the program too. So yeah, that's what I would say. I'd pass it over to Julian.
Thank you, Jerid. And I must admit, every time I come into the lectures right after you've had your interactions with our students, you can already see kind of like the ease, right? Of okay, the walls come down, they're opening up, and that really transitions in even into over to the technical lectures because I, as an instructor, I can't help you unless you open up. And so part of the immersive is not just technical 24/7, right? We're humans at the end of the day. We're the human aspect of it is just as important as the technical things within the program. And so having our program lead, core lead like Jerid and other staff members is vital to making sure that you're in a safe space, you're well taken care of, everything in the environment at your home is good so that you can prosper throughout the immersive. And I love this question, Jenna. You brought up about building relationships, even in a remote virtual environment. As you all know, we had to go live online after 2020, right? Once COVID hit. I was on campus for 2 years, and then from that point on till now, we've been in virtual environment. And I can say relationships uh, continue to be built. If not, I think it's even a little stronger in the virtual environment because you're really forced to uh, come to terms with the fact that like, okay, cool, I'm in a virtual environment. How can I go about building my technical competency while B still forming relationships with my peers? Because as Lena mentioned, you're in a bootcamp environment. You're quote unquote stuck with these individuals for the next 12 weeks who've all come here to accomplish that goal of transitioning to the tech industry. And while that's the main goal out of this bootcamp, you're gonna be surprised. You're gonna be well surprised of just how deep and authentic relationships get built up, get sprung up from your time together. Because sometimes you might be paired with someone who may not be familiar with the material at hand, and so you're both forced to really ask those right questions, how to get help from your instructors, your staff team, how to get unstuck. And so you're going to be spitballing ideas back and forth. And then when you finally realize why the undefined was undefined because you forgot something there, you just those aha moments, you get to share those experiences with one another. And Jared was 100% correct when he mentioned the fact that even after graduation, I've seen so many cohorts, alums, stay in touch with one another. And like one moment on LinkedIn, you see someone get a job at this company A, and then 2 weeks later, you see a student number two get the same type of position or something similar at the same company, and they're thanking one another. Like no joke, it's something where because you know each other's work ethic, and you have to have a strong work ethic to get through this program. You already know that already. It's a prerequisite that you've already fulfilled, and so it's so much easier to bring folks along with you, right, to elevate one another when you've already been through this experience, this very intense experience, and just it's just something that is great to see. I always like to say it's community over competition. That's what I've seen in the past almost 7 years here at Hack Reactor, and so it really makes this place a special one because you're all in it together along with your support systems, like the folks you see here.
I have been remote from the beginning here, actually. I was part of the first remote campus from 2016. So it's possible. I have relationships with all these people in this room, and it's pretty easy. So I'm sure you all know that too. You've all been remote for a long time. But I would say, yeah, based on the remote classrooms that I have been part of the entire time, it's like you really get bonded with your cohort. And I do think, though, that there is a certain level of personal responsibility when you come into the program because it will become what you make it. Like if you have a person in your cohort who kind of poisons the well and has, external locus of control and is always blaming, oh, this is too hard, or they didn't teach this right, or this thing happened, or I didn't have enough time. How could they, like, it will start to create that same feeling throughout the cohort. And I have the students coming to me being like, yeah, it's really tough because these people just keep complaining. I'm just trying to put my head down and learn. So like, you don't want to be part of that culture because the other ones are the best. Like the cohorts that are really supportive and they're like, oh my gosh, this is so hard and we're in it together, like they just crush it and they really utilize each other for support and they have such good memories throughout the program. Like I still have cohorts I worked with that do reunions with each other that are checking in all the time. So I think it is what you make it. I will say that because there's all sorts of opportunities to connect and make that real. And then I'll say after the program. And we encourage you to do this even while you're students. And even now, which the fact you're showing up here gives me all the hope in the world that networking won't be a problem for you, because this is an example of like an informational interview, right? Obviously, we opened this space up for you, but I'm sure you've talked to people who've gone to the program, or you're trying to do your research to see if it's right for you. That's awesome, because it's that curiosity and authenticity that's going to serve you in the job search. You know, when you're a student and you're thinking about where am I going to be in the job, that's an awesome time to start reaching out to people who are already doing that work, because it doesn't come with like a request, right? Nobody's thinking you're just trying to get a referral for a job. You're like, Julian, I'd love to learn more about your career. I see you worked here. I see you worked there. You know, I'd love to learn more about what you find to be the most valuable skills in the positions you've had. I mean, those are real questions that you should be curious about, and you should want to know, like, what will a day in the life look like for me? And how can I be best prepared for that? And how can I show up and really impress managers and teammates, because I understand the industry enough that I can verbalize that well and feel confident in what I'm saying. So those are just true, real relationships that don't have to have this transactional approach. Like, it's like, I would love to get to know these things, learn from your experience, stay connected. I so value what you're telling me and sharing with me. And those do become, I mean, I'm sure everybody in this room that I work with professionally has done that many times. And I still stay in touch with people who I've had just coffee chats with, who ultimately did offer me jobs that I wasn't even looking for at the time. Like, you just have real conversations with people. And yeah, that's a real critical part of the end part, like the job search piece, though, is you just have to let people know who you are and show that initiative and show that you're somebody they'd want to hire. Because if somebody's reaching out to me, you're like 1% of people. You know, I've been managing this team for over 3 years, and I've had like 2 people reach out to me, and I've hired 8 different positions during that time period. So it is a underutilized thing. And I hired that person who reached out to me, by the way. You know, so it pays off, because it gives me like some insight into who you are actually, like the type of confidence and competence and initiative that you have as a person. So yeah, there's all sorts of opportunities to do that, and we will help you become like more comfortable with that, because it is a stretch for some people.
Yeah, certainly. It is that stuff that can sometimes feel the most uncomfortable, but definitely always makes a difference. And I like how kind of everyone touched on like the experience in the program and after is what you make of it. In addition to working with the events, I also am our alumni person at Hack Reactor. So I'm like, yep, can speak to all this as well. That truly like the stuff is there for you if you take advantage of it, both in the program and outside of the program. Just a little overview of like the alumni support provided afterwards. Outside of the career services, we do have spaces like a Slack channel, a LinkedIn group. The spaces for you to stay connected to the people that you have done the program with. We now even have separate cohort channels, so that it's not like you finish the program, you do a graduation, and then you guys are done. It's all on you. You know, you have the career services support, you have the alumni network. We have over 14,000 alumni from just our Hack Reactor programs. So people are out there. They've been working in the industry for like 10 plus years, some of them. We have a channel for you to put your resume into and get feedback from other alumni. We have a Who's Hiring channel where people post jobs at their companies. And yeah, I mean, even recently I saw like one company, I'm like, oh, I've seen that come up a few times. Like there must be some correlation here. And it's always exciting to see it. You know, sometimes it's not even big companies. It's just this niche company that's growing, and you see people supporting the growth from, you know, referring their peers in. So it's always cool to see people take advantage of those resources, put in the effort, and then be rewarded by, you know, having a better chance at maybe some jobs that they're looking at. So yeah, just wanted to give my little 2 cents on that one, and thank you all for the insight into that relationship building piece. I'm going to give one final chance to submit any audience questions, and then ask this kind of one closing question, and then we'll wrap up. So I just wanted to kind of, as we're nearing the end of this event, ask you all if you could pass along one piece of advice for those considering attending the program, what would that be? Kind of a big question, but I think it's a nice chance to get out any final thoughts.
Don't suffer in silence. At the first sign of distress, reach out to me, your instructor, and seer, right? If you have a seer, like reach out and allow us to do our jobs of supporting you as early as possible so that we can have the most advantageous results for you, right? So don't suffer in silence. That's when I usually have to come in with the program lead hat, right? Is when someone has kind of suffered in silence and allowed something to kind of fester, and we are now, 3 or 4 weeks into the program, and you're very unsure about, who you are and where you're going to go. And so I want you to reach out early and often, so that we can, like I said, so we can do our job of supporting you and helping you work through the program is one piece of advice I would immediately throw out there.
I'm a big fan of acronyms, as you will all realize when you do a lot of this full stack software engineering stuff. So I'll throw one acronym that I made up a while back as a piece of advice for those considering whether you want to attend this type of program. It's really to help shape that mindset we talked about earlier. And here it goes. Keep it hot. H stands for humility. So you want to be a learn-it-all, not a know-it-all. That's what's going to help you succeed throughout the immersive by keeping that open mind. O stands for ownership, which Lena alluded to earlier, right? You can have all the different type of supports, community building, and resources available for you all. But if you don't take ownership of that by being proactive, by reaching out, by making sure you're not suffering in silence that Jerid just mentioned, that's not going to get you anywhere. That's not going to move the needle forward. And so the worst thing about not having resources is having resources but not utilizing them. So you've got to take ownership of that from day one. And you can do that even before you come into this immersive by attending a session like today, attending the info sessions that's enrollment and marketing team are going to make available for you all, and just gathering as much information, not just about the program, but about yourself, right? In terms of what you want, why you're doing what you're doing. So you have a clear picture, purpose by the time you get into the program, and then that's going to help anchor yourselves to succeed. And finally, tenacity. That's just something where if you be consistent and you persevere, we've been at this program for a very long time. That's what we've seen help folks stand out from the pack is by just showing up, not just during the immersive, but when you're with the career services team, right? Keeping that open mind, asking those questions, engaging with your career services manager, asking for help, not being afraid of, is this going to sound a certain way, or am I wasting your time? Like, no, they're there for you. We're here for you. And just making sure you take advantage of those opportunities along the way. So keep it hot.
Coming in with the awesome acronym, Julian, no surprise there. Let's see here. You two really nailed it. Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to not say exactly what you said, but add some value here. I would say, like, be as committed as you possibly can. Like, if you're coming here, for most people, this is a different type of educational choice. You're not like going to college to get a degree. You're not like, most people are doing this because they want to get a specific job. They're transitioning careers. There's like a real, tangible end goal at the end of this. So that ownership piece and commitment is like, you're doing yourself a total disservice if you're not coming into it learning this for a job, right? And I have been in school so many times in my life, I can't even tell you. And I've always done like I like to learn, clearly, but I'm not always the most like committed to that. I'm kind of like, cool, I'll do what I need to do to get the grade that I want to get, right? But I'm like, might be phoning it in or like procrastinating or cramming before that last exam. Like, I'm not doing all the steps it takes during like a normal like undergrad. I'll say that for sure. Like, I did well, I got good grades, but like, was I reading every single day and really committed? Definitely not. It wasn't. And now that I'm like an adult, and now that I just went through this other program, I just view it way differently. I'm like, if I'm going to waste my time and my money and rearrange my whole life to make this happen, I'm learning this to learn this. Like, truly, it doesn't matter whether Julian gives me a good grade or not. It doesn't matter whether I like can get this help from ChatGPT really quick so that I can get this thing submitted. It's like, if I don't know it, what is the point? So it's like, and it's not that it doesn't feel over your head at times, for sure. Like, but don't sabotage yourself. Like, the more committed you are to the program, the better, because then when you come out, you really should feel really confident in yourself and what you just did. And then I would say that carries into the job search, that persistent, like honestly, the HOT acronym was hot. That was perfect, because it like what you see happen oftentimes is when people graduate, they go from this really rigid, like highly scheduled, time management is done for you. You are told what to do, when to do it. You have all these timelines you have to manage, and that creates discipline. You can't get around that. You have to get these things done. And when those guardrails are taken down, it's really hard to do that for yourself. So if you can kick it into gear and just try and like map on that time management right when you graduate, you will help yourself significantly, because it might take you 2 months to crawl out of that unmotivated stage. And that's a bummer, because that's 2 months where you're probably not getting paid, or, like you're having to work a part-time job while you're looking for this full-time job. So the discipline piece of it is really critical, and knowing that it doesn't end when you graduate. Like in your mind, you just have to be like, and here I go, here's how I'm going to use that exact same time during my day, and just reallocate it toward job search efforts.
Amazing. Thank you all. That was really such great advice. I think it was all very powerful and definitely important stuff for everyone to keep in mind. We are at the end of our time, so I want to say thank you so much to our 3 amazing panelists. Amazing always advice as always. Really appreciate the insights that you're able to give from the perspective of seeing this be done with so many students over so many years. Really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone that gave us an hour, joined us, invested an hour into yourself on a Friday. Love that. I put in the chat, we do have a Vimeo with all of our event recordings. We have some like learn to code sessions. We have some events on the mentality of a software engineer, generative AI events. We also are hosting another generative AI fundamentals event on November 8th. That's really cool. So encourage you all to join us then. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. There's lots of contact buttons on our website, and if I can paste it quickly enough, I'll put our email here, admissions@galvanize.com. If you have any further questions that come up after the fact, we would love to answer them all. And I hope that everyone has a fantastic weekend, and just want to say a huge thank you again. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good one. Thanks.